come back here for?
Good evening. Welcome to the Selectmen's meeting for November 9th, 2023. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first thing I'm going to read is just housekeeping, so don't get like we're going to shut the thing down. I move we open the continued public hearing of 9/28/2023 in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law C 148, Section 13, regarding the application received from Jason Wild requesting the storage of 600 gallons of propane for a total of 114,640 gallons located at Lee Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
I move that we take no action on this license.
Yeah, got it.
You need a roll
Yeah, roll call.
call first to open the continued hearing.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Jamie.
Now your motion.
I move that we take no action on this license.
Second, roll call.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Jamie.
Now, I move that we open the hearing to consider the application for license under Mass General Law, Chapter 183, Section 13, for the property located at 9 Lee Road, and waive the reading of the notice and incorporated the notice into the minutes of the hearing. Have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Jamie.
Okay, the following procedures will be followed. Testimony will be limited to the issues directly related to the subject matter. Only one person will be permitted to speak at a time. All discussions will go through the chair. Arguments between parties will not be allowed. We will set a 2-minute time limit for discussion, and if you need more, we'll discuss allowing to extend that. I ask the application to present each person who testifies and chairs it. Okay, the applicant here.
Yep. Jason?
Yep, come up, state your name and the address for the record, please.
My name is Jason Wild. I am representative for Superior Plus Propane. Proceed with further.
Proceed with your presentation.
All right, so the beginning part was more of the correction from last time, so now we're back on what we're actually asking for. So the location at 9 Lee Road is a bulk plant for propane and a substation for natural gas. The tanks that are underground there currently are 30,000 gallon tanks. They were there when Berkshire Gas built that property. They had one and they added a couple more tanks as they went. 2004, 2005, Osterman Propane purchased those tanks and they conducted business out of there with propane distribution. From that time on, they basically leased the property from Berkshire Gas, but owned the tanks in the ground. So in, I want to say 2018, Superior Plus Propane bought Osterman. And from that point, Superior has been in control of those tanks, maintenance and those items. So Superior from that point as well, utilized it just as Osterman did as a facility for parking the trucks, bringing back tanks, taking new ones and taking them out to the customers' locations. So what happened roughly about three months ago, Fire department responded to an inspection for a repair Berkshire Gas was doing, or some maintenance Berkshire Gas was doing. Once they came on the property, they looked at it and said, oh my gosh, why are all these tanks here? So we immediately called. There were some issues with the numbers getting through to someone directly. It took a few days, I believe. Finally, Chief and I connected, and he was asking me all about it. And I said, well, we should have permits for that. During that time where he was trying to get hold of me, it looked like in 21 was the last time that Superior had completed or filled out a permit, or renewed their permit, I should say. So obviously we make the calls, try to get that straightened out. It was an oversight on Superior Plus's part. Digging into it further, find out that we really didn't have permission to have the extra tanks there on the property, or the bobtails, the delivery trucks. So at that point, that's when we had fire chief and fire marshal come in, do a walkthrough and tell us everything that needed to be straightened out, what needed to be done to get it compliant, and then what the rules would be moving forward pending approval at this meeting here. So what we are asking is to have 8,600 gallons worth of tanks sitting. And when I say that, you have to use the total capacity of the tanks to add up what you have available at the, what you are storing there. So a 120 gallon tank sits about this high. Many of you may have them at your home or a garage. So 120 gallons, 72 times into that is 8,600 gallons. The other request is for the delivery trucks. And those are roughly 3,200 gallon barrels on those. And we're asking for up to 5. That's where we come up with that number. So we're adding in the already existing and permitted tanks in the ground, and we're asking to amend that permit for the storage of up to 72 tanks and up to 5 delivery trucks. The 600 gallon issue was a issue with methanol. Methanol is a product we use in the propane. That propane, the methanol is to remove moisture, to eliminate freeze ups. If we didn't have temperatures that dipped below 32 degrees, we wouldn't need methanol, but we are in a climate that is cold. So methanol is a requirement for the propane to do business. So that's the other 600 gallons that we wanted to make sure that that was also out there so everyone was aware. We moved those tanks, the barrels of methanol were just in a steel drum prior. We've moved those out of steel drums and put them into a high pressure propane tank, ASM certified tank. So that is now compliant as well and much safer than what the barrels were. So that's why we're asking up to 600 gallons. Right now it sits roughly about 300 gallons. Every time a transport or semi comes in to reload, they use anywhere from 10 to 15 gallons with the load that goes into the propane to keep it from freezing. So that'll continually go down. We'll have to come in with new product, fill that tank, and continue that cycle throughout the winter. So that's what we're asking for, is just to amend the permit that was already there for items that unfortunately have been there since 2004. The tanks have grown as far as storage there that I'm well aware of, and I have photos looking at satellite times, and about that 2017, 2018 to 2021 is where it really grew. It kind of sustained through that with income and outgo of tanks, refurbishing and things like that. So we were able to get rid of all but 24 of those 120 gallon tanks. There's 24 that are sitting there now. We've cleaned everything out. The only thing we have left, as of a week ago, was 60 brand new tanks. They're all under vacuum, so there's no product in there. They're basically a piece of metal, not a danger in any way. So they're under vacuum. There's no pressures, nothing in them. So we've separated them out. Crash protection, we're documenting what we're bringing in. When they come in, we'll pump them down within 2 weeks of being at that plant. And when I say pump them down, we have a facility that's a piping system that will take gas out of those tanks safely without having to flare it or burn it off. So there won't be any product that's released. It goes into the tank system. It goes back into our source. Those tanks are then brought down to a negative pressure or a vacuum also. If they're good, we'll put them into the good spot and we'll reuse them. If not, we'll hold them. That's where the 72 tanks that we're asking for is, we'll hold them until we can get enough to send them out to be refurbished. Any questions about that?
Not at this point.
You got it.
Huh?
I was gonna say that's.
No.
You guys, yeah.
Okay. So town officials review timeline and status and concerns.
Yeah, I'm gonna just run us quickly through the timeline that we have as far as things that are up there. So, as was stated in some of the presentation, 1973, there was an application to put in a single 30,000 gallon LP mounted tank below ground, with the possible expansion for 2 additional ones. In 1981, 2 additional mounted UST 30,000 gallon tanks were approved. In 2005, a storage license under Mass General Law 148, Section 13 for those tanks was issued. This is when they began operating up there as far as propane for 9 Lee Road. In 2021, UNI Engineering performed third-party inspections on the 1, 2, and 3 mounted 30,000 tanks that were used, and stating that each tank was in good working condition and compliant with applicable regulations and standards. In 2023, the site inspections by Stockbridge Fire Chief Vincent Garofoli and Mass DFS John Wood III to verify all code compliance violations were properly documented. An order and notice was issued to the Berkshire Gas Company and Superior Plus Energy Services. On 10/23/2023, compliance inspection performed for Superior Plus Engineering Service Incorporated found all remaining violations except those needing to be addressed under the amended land license were in compliance. The current status is Berkshire Gas, and these licenses are issued to the landowner, and it goes with the land, was acquired by, through Superior Plus, who acquired Osterman, can operate 3 30,000 tanks for the actual storage of the inflammable materials. Like I said, the license does not expire unless otherwise revoked for cause, subject to a hearing and proper notice under Mass General Law 148, Section 13. What we're specifically dealing with right now is the request for 600 gallons of methanol. There's already, I believe, a pre-existing 500 gallon tank up there. And this is, as was stated, would be added to the loads to prevent freezing. They're also asking for above ground storage containers of 5 3,200 gallon delivery trucks and 72 120 gallon vertical tanks. I do know, speaking to our fire chief, there was a concern raised as far as that there is a requirement for propane marketers are required to take any tank with 5% more to the closest bulk plant facility under hazmat transportation regulations. As far as the board should be concerned is that emergency operations under state or federal hazmat rules would not be something that we would be putting in the license. State and federal laws in those cases would supersede any local jurisdiction. But once the evacuated tanks are on site, then they would fall to the local licensing of whether or not they could remain there. The issue for the selectmen tonight is solely on whether the license application is in compliance with 148 Section 13 and whether they wish to impose any additional conditions beyond those recommended by the fire department. That is where we're at this point.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
not yet. We'll get to that point. Any questions from the board?
I do.
Yep.
Go ahead.
You go first.
So what's the request is for 72 120 gallon tanks. Can you just walk through again the difference between recovered and refurbished? And new and refurbished are kind of the same in terms of like, some are full and some are empty. Is that right?
So when we recover a tank, we'll take a tank from out in the field, from your home. We'll bring it back to our plant and we will empty it. At that point, we'll determine whether that tank is in poor condition and needs to be sent to be refurbished,
Yep.
or it's still in good working order. We'll put it over on the other side as a ready to set or already refurbished or.
And what's the total number of tanks, whether they're full or not full or whatever, at any given time, the maximum number that could be on the property?
Right now, I can't have anything on there other.
No, I mean, under the permit. So is it,
If we go by what we're asking for, yeah, so we're looking at 8,600 gallons.
that's full, that's how much, that's
That's-
potential storage, or is that 86 plus the empty ones?
No, that's water capacity of every tank that sits there.
Okay. And you're withdrawing the request for the additional 600 gallon or 500 gallon on the methanol, is it now just going to be one, not a backup one?
Yeah, there's never anything.
Okay.
We were just trying to get the permit to match what was already existing.
And so why is it that you didn't apply for the license you're seeking tonight or request the annually required safety inspections until now? Is it just oversight? Is it?
It really is. I wish I had a better answer than that. Obviously, through the transition that they had with Osterman, they followed up with it to a certain point, and then the ball was dropped in 21. Apparently, they did it, but after that, they did not. It definitely is an oversight on the corporate side. You want to point fingers. It really is what it comes down to. I wasn't involved with the company at that time, so I can't really speak to it, but I'm here now and trying to make it right. So, but
And who will be responsible going forward for the operation and kind of making sure that we're in compliance?
yeah, so I oversee the region of Southern New England. So myself and our general manager who sees of total New England.
That he reports to you?
No, I report to him.
Oh,
So between the two of us and Scott Sullivan, who we've discussed a few times here, he is more in the procurement side of the company. So between those three, us three, we're responsible for that when we do the tier 2 reporting in end of January and in February.
Right.
Just another task that needs to be done at that point.
and how long have they been with the company?
Scott Sullivan has been there for a while, over 10 years.
And how about the general manager?
And Jeff, the general manager, my boss, and myself are the same 18 months.
Okay, so it's basically kind of new management, so we're trying to kind of clean it up. Okay.
You know.
And the reclaimed sort of unpermitted tanks that were hanging around, that's just part of this. You said there's 24 left, or what was that now?
Yeah, there's 24 as of today. Where we were was a matter of being more disciplined and getting them out of there in a
Right.
quicker fashion.
I guess I'm just curious, like, I mean, you weren't there, so I don't know if that's even a relevant question.
Can help.
Basically, I was wondering, like, kind of just when companies acquire other companies, you would think there'd be due diligence to, kind of say, okay, there's no permits in place for this stuff that's going on. I mean, it's kind of surprising to me that, and I know there was a larger operation and this was just one facility of many, but.
No, you're correct. What happens,
I mean, so you were only been there 18 months, but
Right, I'm just gonna speak from industry experience.
yeah,
What happens in an acquisition, typically the purchaser of that company ends up taking a lot more tanks back out of the field because the customer's not happy with that transition. So they decide to go elsewhere.
yeah.
So in a matter of 3 to 6 months, that company who just bought the other company now is taking back a tremendous amount of tanks at one time.
Which explains the 270.
Well, it is part of that, yeah. The reason we're talking specifically about these 120 upright tanks that you have, a lot of them are what we call DOT tanks, certified tanks. They need to be recertified every 5 years. So a lot of times we'll go out to the field, if that tank is out of date, we can't fill it. So we'll take one ready, that is certified and good, we'll take that and we'll exchange them, bring the other one back and do our process. So, yeah, you can really get a whirlwind of tanks to work with, but bottom line, yeah, it was assuming an influx of a bunch of tanks when they purchased and didn't get rid of them fast enough.
So I just have one other question. You seem like a great manager. And in contrast to the guy or people who ran it for the 50 years before where there were basically no permits, you shine even brighter. But I guess the question is, from a corporate perspective, it'd be nice to create some confidence that the company, not the individual, but the company, regardless of whether, you shoot up the ranks and go to, superior triple propane next, that the company is going to have a plan in place to manage these processes so this doesn't happen again.
Well, part of that is the reason why Jeff, my boss, and myself are in here. So, yeah, this location specifically had 4 managers in a matter of 3 years.
Right.
So.
Now it's been 5 and
I
4.5.
Right.
I'm just saying.
So, yeah, so it's not been good. I know it's just a bunch of words, but company has refocused on the quality of people that we bring in. So they're hiring experienced propane people to manage these items, and that's why Jeff and I are here. We are on the radar with a bunch of the other mounted tanks throughout Massachusetts, and we are working with those CSCs also to do this exact same thing. So unfortunately, this is not our only one.
Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Not yet.
Okay. So mine are more practical questions. We've asked for 5 trucks. Why 5?
4 is what is required based off the business that is in this area. 5 is just a spare if there's a problem.
Okay, so the other question is, do you service local customers?
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned the 72 120 gallon tanks, and you mentioned that to refurbish them, you need a certain number to bring them, and what is that number?
72. That's
It
a
is.
truckload that'll go to the refurbishing.
And where are these 72 stored as you wait?
In the past, they were at the location. Right now, what we're asking for is to have the 72 in a designated area on the map that we have.
And you mentioned these tractor trailers, these semi trailers coming. How often does that happen or would happen?
Well, in the past, not enough. So what we did was 7 or 8, I believe, in the last 3 months, getting those tanks out. So if that's
Okay.
3 years worth of stuff, so that's what you're looking at.
And did you come to the fire chief or to the board as soon as you knew you didn't have permitting?
When I found out was right when it was brought to my attention from the fire chief.
All right, thank you. That's all I have right now.
Most of my questions have been answered. So 72 tanks. So that's to fill a tractor trailer when they pick them up to,
That's the only goal, yes.
okay. Okay.
Just one thing. Just so everybody is aware of that, under this licensing process, whether or not the containers are full or empty, it's 72 containers is it. So, or whatever number is set. So they're all considered full for the purpose of licensing and permitting.
Yeah, most of them be empty, half empty when you pick them up, but we gotta go with that they're all full.
Right. That's where the 8,600 gallons, the gallon mark comes in, yes.
Any other questions from the board?
No.
Okay. Yes, anybody wishes to speak who is in favor? In favor? Anybody? Anybody on
Position.
Zoom in favor? Okay, the big one, ask if anyone wishes to speak in opposition. Okay, let's just start with,
We have
Yeah.
to come up.
I just
you
really,
gotta come up,
Name and address.
speak. You gotta come up to the, you gotta come up to
I just have a really quick
microphone
question.
and state your name and your address, please.
Sally Underwood Miller, 10 Rattlesnake Mountain Road. And I'm here sort of in my capacity as a member of the Conservation Commission. My understanding is that there's a significant amount of paving up there on your property. This property is, as you probably know, located within the area of critical environmental concern for Campus Bog. So it has rather a larger concern for the conservation than just any old piece of property. And because of what is potentially damaging to the ACEC. So up until a couple of years ago, there's a stormwater permit in Stockbridge that would require a permit being issued for any disturbance over 10,000 square feet. And I wondered if you could tell me how much of your property is paved, it's now impervious surface, and where does all that water go?
That's
And
not part-
did you get a permit from the planning board to do that?
That's not part of the issue here, so we can't discuss that. That's not part of the permit application here.
But if they're in.
Question's gotta be
If they're in
on,
violation of the
that's,
conservation.
yeah, but that's not part of this, that's a separate issue.
Okay, you're not required to have. all the
Only
permits in
legally
place?
talk about the 600 gallon methanol tank, the 5 trucks and the 72 tanks. That's all we can discuss tonight, correct?
Yes. So
Okay.
tonight's meeting is solely on the license application and its compliance
You can't
with
legally
Mass
talk about
General
it.
Law, Chapter 148, Section 13. Any other violations, if they were found by the Conservation Committee, Planning Board, zoning, or anything else, could trigger a license revocation hearing by the Select Board. But the Select Board cannot take those into consideration for tonight's meeting. They can only take in consideration tonight the application in front of them and the application of Mass General Law 148, Section 13.
David?
I'd like to thank the select board for allowing abutters to speak during the permitting process.
Name and
My
address?
name is,
I'm sorry. Cut you off.
I'm going to get there, I promise. My
Yeah.
name is David Adler. My wife Stephanie and I live at 7 Lee Road in Stockbridge. We are primary abutters to the property at 9 Lee Road. Both the north side and east side of our property abut the applicant's property. This is a pretty complicated topic, so with the board's indulgence, I'd like to read my comments. I also printed some pictures that I feel are germane to the topic at hand. I think it is important for the other abutters and neighbors to understand the issues of this permitting process as well as the select board. So with your indulgence, I'd like to go back a few years and start with the original permit in 1973. There was a hearing held at Town Hall at which opportunity was given to all those interested to be heard in favor or in opposition to allow Berkshire Gas Company to have a special permit to store 30,000 gallons of liquefied petroleum gas in one singular tank with the possibility of adding 2 additional 30,000 gallon tanks for a potential overall capacity of 90,000 gallons. The only abutter in attendance was Dr. Brinker, as he was the only abutter at that time up there. The location for this facility was important at the time because of its proximity to the Tenneco pipeline, which is now owned by Kinder Morgan. The Berkshire Gas representative stated that, and I quote, "The stored propane would be blended with the natural gas coming through the pipeline, and the basic purpose of the installation was that it would be a standby for the natural gas in the pipeline. It would only be used on an average of perhaps 24 days per year," unquote. In addition, according to those minutes of that meeting, the site would be screened with shrubs and trees, which up until about 2 months ago, this was the back of my property. These are the trees that were there. The stockade fence is the stockade fence that we paid to put up there. On the other side of the stockade fence is a chain link fence, which was put up by the gas company. Today, what it looks like is this. The gas company took 20 feet from the surface up and took all the branches off of the trees that are behind my property. And if you look from the other side, from the Berkshire Gas side, it looks like this. I would say Dr. Seuss trees would be pretty accurate myself. There's no branches at the lower level. As a side note, we've received an estimate to replace the screening that the applicant had removed. It will cost us tens of thousands of dollars for us to add this screening, but our concerns, the abutters' concerns in this room and the neighborhood's concerns, are less about the screening and more about our safety. While the applicant made it clear to Stephanie and I that they'd be more than willing to pay for the screening while not telling us how much they'd pay, our safety is not for sale at any price. In that 1972 permit, Berkshire Gas stated there'd be monitoring tests, including flame detection, odor detection, vapor detection, and vandalism detection. Berkshire Gas's representative also stated there'd be fire drills with the local fire department. The select board unanimously approved the application in 1973. Between 1973 and when Berkshire Gas came back to the select board in June 1981, 8 years later, Berkshire Gas did not register the tanks for the town one time. Not in 1974, 1975, 1976, 1977, 1978, 1979, and not in 1980. However, in 1981, when Berkshire Gas wanted their 2 additional 30,000-gallon tanks, they came before the select board for further permission. This application was described as, and I quote, "additional storage to increase supplementary gas supply," unquote. Again, in the minutes from that meeting, there are numerous instances when Mr. Hurdle from Berkshire Gas mentioned that the propane will be supplementing the natural gas line that is going to those larger mounted tanks. It is important to note that both the 73 and 81 permits do not mention any requests for methanol, no requests for small vertical tanks or horizontal tanks, and no requests for trucks. The permit for Berkshire Gas to have 3 30,000-gallon tanks was approved in 1981. After 1981, Berkshire Gas chose to not register their tanks with the town of Stockbridge again until 2003, 22 years later. From 1973 until 2003, except for only 1 year, the rest of the 30 years the tanks were behind my property, the owner chose not to register their tanks with the town. And because of the fact there was no registration, there was also no fire department inspections, as the gas company was supposed to request them annually and failed to do so. And not only were there no fire inspections in those 30 years, but there are 0 records of the state inspecting the 3 large tanks either, or the Stockbridge gas inspector inspecting the property. In the mid-1990s, we bought the property at 7 Lee Road, and shortly thereafter, the McDonald's bought their property at 3 Lee Road. The McDonald's built their house first, and we followed shortly thereafter. Our families raised our children at Stockbridge, and all the time, we thought that what was going on at 9 Lee Road was permitted, being inspected, and was safe. In 2003 and 2004, Berkshire Gas registered their tanks for the town. In 2005, things apparently got really interesting at 9 Lee Road. I would call it a red light moment. In 2005, Berkshire Gas apparently started to lease the tanks and most of the property at 9 Lee Road. The natural gas line was apparently either disconnected or shut off between the Kinder Morgan pipeline and the 3 30,000-gallon tanks. And Berkshire Gas handed over control of the propane business to Osterman Propane. So now, instead of the propane being supplemental gas as was asked for in the previous 2 permits, the propane was now going to be the only gas in those tanks. And when I say that apparently the line was cut or shut off from the natural gas line to the large tanks, it is because there are zero records from the town that there was ever a gas inspection done by the town gas inspector. When that line was cut, it turned 9 Lee Road into a propane depot that can be located anywhere, not just at 9 Lee Road. The type of business at 9 Lee Road changed substantially. Also in 2005, Osterman applied for and was granted a special permit by the Stockbridge Selectmen for the 3 30,000-gallon tanks. No permit for methanol, no permit for delivery tanker trucks, no permit for any vertical or horizontal additional tanks. With the changes in 2005, 9 Lee Road started to get really, really busy. Now that the line from the natural gas lines to the tank were severed, the only way to fill the mounted tanks was now to utilize large 18-wheel tanker trucks. These 18-wheelers are coming in today at all hours of the day and night. Before through 2005, there were very few 3,200-gallon delivery trucks. Now they're also coming in at all hours of the day and night. In one single 12-hour period this week, 2 18-wheelers rolled in to drop off their loads, and they routinely come either before or after normal business hours. Over the next 6 years, Osterman chose to not register the tanks, and I should again point out that without that registration, no inspections were performed. Let's leave the 2000s and move ahead over the next 20 years to 2021. In the fall of 2021, after 49 years of using the mounted tanks, finally a third-party vendor, not the state, was paid by Osterman to come to the property for an inspection. While the tanks were luckily found to be in compliance, the piping to the tanks was replaced within very short order. I should also mention that when the piping was replaced, all the propane had to be removed from these 3 huge mounted tanks. How was the removal process accomplished? Was the propane put into another tank? No, the answer is no. Instead, a tripod was set up and the gas company burned it off. The flame from this burn off went well over 50 feet into the air. Did the gas company notify us of the burn off ahead of time? No, they did not. I'm sure some of our butters remember it and would be more than happy to speak on it, about it. To say it was scary would be an understatement. Now, this just takes us to just a few months ago in August. In August, the fire chief was asked by Berkshire Gas if he wanted to inspect the work that was being done on the abandoned natural gas line, not the propane business being run by Superior Plus. My understanding after having talked with Vinny is that the fire chief was shocked at what he saw was being done at the propane depot being run out of 9 Lee Road. There were hundreds of unpermitted tanks on the property. This is exactly what it looked like behind the property to give you a little bit of an idea. All these tanks were back there. They were stacked on top of each other, rusting out and had been for many, many years. Yeah, all these were full at some point, or they were full at the time. As you can see, the truck is right here. No barriers between the truck and the driveway and all those tanks that are over to the right there. This one here, you can see the paving in the back here, and this is all impervious, I believe. This is where the water runs off from the east side to the west side of the property and goes right over the McDonald's property. You can see all the tanks that are stacked up, no barriers around them, all the weeds growing up. These are not permitted. The truck back here is not permitted, and this is what they've been doing. This is my property right here before all the trees and the branches were all cut down. You can see what was going on back there. And the reason that nobody knew about it was because nobody knew about it. All the trees were there. But you can see all of this stuff is not permitted. This is the methanol that we're talking about. Just in a 55-gallon drum with a little faucet on it for them to go ahead and just take it out. That's what we're talking about here. These are the methanol 55-gallon drums that were back there. Again, no barriers at all. Right next to the tanks and right next to the driveway. Nothing. And finally, just one more picture of, again, more of the tanks that were just stacked up back there, haphazardly on top of each other, all with some form of natural gas or propane in them. I give a ton of credit to Vinny. He called in the subject matter experts from the state's fire marshal's office to assist him in his assessment of what the heck was going on. With the assessment complete and Superior Plus caught being non-compliant, the cleanup work began.
The fire chief ordered over 270 unpermitted propane and methanol tanks removed from the property within 7 days. Please remember that Superior Plus arrived over 2 years ago and had ample time to remove these tanks, but they chose to not do so. However, after now being caught with unpermitted tanks on the property, 7 tractor trailer loads of tanks were removed within the week. Of course, the changes that were being mandated would only bring Superior Plus into compliance with the application that is now before you. And by the way, has not even been voted on. The chief gave Superior Plus until September 20th, 30 days later to come into permit compliance. They failed. The chief gave them until October 20th, 30 more days, and they failed again. The chief then gave them 4 more days, and today they're finally in compliance with a permit that has not yet been approved by this board. Since these safety shortcomings were discovered, I've asked the town to pull all the permits for 9 Lee Road. The gaps in permitting and registration are highly troublesome. I reached out to the state Berry tank inspector. They told me that the property hasn't been in use for over 20 years, which is clearly inaccurate. I reached out to the Camp Housabog Stewardship Committee, as our properties lie within the area of critical environmental concern, or ACEC. I contacted the Stockbridge Conservation Commission as well. To everyone's surprise, nobody knew what was going on at 9 Lee Road. Before I address my last concern, I'd just like to ask a few questions of the fire chief, if he doesn't mind. Are the flame, odor, vapor, vandalism detectors in place as discussed in the 1973 permitting process?
I can only speak to the gas and fire protection. I can't speak to the vandalism side of it. I do know that as part of the vandalism side, they did add barbed wire to the top of the chain link, but the other security measures only Superior and Berkshire Gas can speak on.
Thanks, Chief. And in addition, besides the fire drill you just held a few days ago, when was the last time there was a fire drill on this property since 1973? Do we have
No
any idea?
records that I can find.
Okay, thank you. Finally, I'd like to address just 2 last items. The permit itself is in Berkshire Gas's name. There were 2 permits in their name, then there was a permit in Osterman's name, and now it's going back to Berkshire Gas. Why is that, and who is really in charge of the mounted tanks? This permit also has the trucks and 120-gallon vertical tanks on it, but Berkshire Gas, the listed applicant, doesn't even own the tanks or trucks. Why is that? And there's nothing in this permit that prohibits Berkshire Gas or Superior Plus from having an unlimited number of new tanks, because the permit only talks about refurbished tanks. They could literally have 1,000 new tanks on the property, as this permit only limits the number of reclaimed tanks. And as regards the 72 120-gallon reclaimed and partially filled tanks, the only reason for that number is that it's what fits on the back of a tractor trailer. That is not the safest number of 120-gallon tanks. The safest number is actually 0 tanks. I can go on, but this permit is flawed in numerous ways. And the last point I'll make is about one other tank on the property that nobody has mentioned in any documentation, and yet again was surprisingly never ever permitted. There is a buried 800-gallon tank on the property. It's right next to the Keenan's property line over in Lee. It's behind these barriers, and it's right there where that cement square is. I've been told that it was empty today, but there is no record of when it was installed. Could have been last year, 15 years ago, or 50 years ago. In this tank was stored mercaptan. Stephanie's a nurse, and she decided to do some research on what mercaptan really is. Mercaptan is the chemical that is added to both natural gas and propane to give it the nasty smell that we are familiar with. In addition, it can adversely affect a person's respiratory system, cardiovascular system, nervous system, gastrointestinal system, renal and hepatic system, and dermatological system. And this is the direct quote from the National Institute of Health website. The United States Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, has classified methylmercaptan as a potential chemical weapon of mass effect. If you go to the DHS website, a chemical weapon of mass effect is further defined as a weapon of mass destruction, or WMD. The abutters request that the Select Board deny the applicant's permit in its entirety, that Berkshire Gas or Osterman or Superior Plus or whatever name they are using be ordered to remove any delivery trucks, any refurbished or new tanks. In addition, that the methanol be denied as well. Furthermore, that we request that an environmental study of the property be performed immediately to determine any adverse environmental impact, both current and potential. That the Stockbridge Conservation Commission review the property to decide if the asphalt and other impervious surfaces that were recently added were ever permitted, and if not, that Berkshire Gas return the property back to its previous state. That the buried Mercaptan 800-gallon tank be ordered to be removed within 120 days, and the process to be supervised accordingly. And lastly, as regards the three 30,000-gallon mounted tanks, Berkshire Gas has substantially altered the business as it was originally permitted for. They have attempted to skirt any regulatory approval or inspection process by randomly changing the names on any permits or registrations between Berkshire Gas, Osterman Propane, and Superior Plus Propane. The town should vigorously investigate all avenues available to our town to have these tanks removed. The abutters and neighbors are shocked and outraged that this dangerous, unpermitted behavior was able to continue unabated for 50 years, and only through a purely lucky coincidence were they even discovered. And we clearly lay the blame for this malfeasance at the doorstep of Berkshire Gas, Osterman Propane, and Superior Plus Propane. Thank you for your time. I apologize for the length of my comments that spanned 50 years. I think my wife would like to briefly speak as well.
Stephanie Adler, 7 Lee Road. So obviously, much has been said. I don't know that I can add a whole lot, except that I would like to speak briefly as a parent and as a mother. For 2 decades, we raised our children just yards from this operation, as did the McDonald's and the Keenan family, who are their abutters in Lee, still do. In all of those years, we tucked our children into bed feeling so certain that they were safe. After all, this potentially dangerous business was being allowed to operate in a residential area, so surely every effort was being carefully made toward acquiring all of the licensing and permitting legally required. And surely all the necessary safety inspections were being sought and obtained. And now to find out after all this time that nothing could have been further from the reality. It makes me feel sick to even think of what might have happened. So now, as this board considers whether to grant this permit tonight, I would ask one thing of you. And that is to think about the very real and important reasons we have separate and distinct zoning for residential and industrial areas, and to think about the reality of how this business operates today and how fundamentally different that is from what was required in the special permit issued so many decades ago. So distinctly different, in fact, as perhaps to even nullify it. And with that said, ask yourselves this. If any other unpermitted propane operation approached you today with the same application for any other residential area in Stockbridge, be it Goodrich Street or Prospect Hill, or any residentially zoned neighborhood, would you grant it? All we are asking is to feel safe in our own homes. Please carefully consider what that means as you make your decision. Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name's Jim McDonald, and I live at 3 Lee Road. So my property borders the gas company on the west side of all that. And it was 39 years ago that we went and looked at this property. And, I remember going up on cross-country skis. It was the middle of winter. And we saw the gas company there. And we chose to look into this property. We chose to buy this property. In the process, we have an easement going from the gas line through our property to the gas company, an easement down below our property for the main gas line. So we bought this property knowing this gas company was here. I'm not coming in here tonight like somebody that bought next to an airport that's complaining about the noise. But the people that buy next to an airport would expect that the airplanes are inspected, the pilots are licensed, and they're safe. And the big disappointment on this whole matter is just, like Stephanie said, we raised our children here. Their bedrooms were facing all those gas tanks, all the stuff that had not been inspected the whole time. And for the first 20 years, we'd rarely see a truck over there coming up and down the driveway. So it was more of the storage facility that I guess the original permit was granted for. And now the addition of more trucks and the tractor trailer tanker trucks filled with gas coming up and down that very narrow driveway, which borders the Keenan's barn, the Keenan's house. It's a matter of probably only 40, 50 feet. If one of those tankers came down on an icy morning and slid and went into that area. And it's extremely dangerous. Adding more trucks to that road. You know, it's really weird, and I'd recommend you look at some sort of a traffic study on that section of highway from Yale Hill to Pete Nabenny's house. And I've been there, 29 years, and I know that there's far into double-digit accidents in that area. For some reason, that's a very dangerous stretch of highway. And, I think that, people that know that area can, for odd reasons, and I don't know why, there's a lot of accidents in that reason. And it's kind of like its own little microclimate there too, with the Campuso bog that comes across there. There's times that we have frost on our windshields and stuff that nobody else does because everything just settles right across there and up there. And my driveway, there's times that I have to, on a windy day, plow 2-3 times a day. So the thought of all these gas trucks coming down the incline and into that road where it's currently a school bus stop and onto that very dangerous stretch of highway and then coming down to Route 7. And there's been numerous times that you get to the end of Lee Road to Route 7 and you can see where somebody slid across Route 7 and into the swamp there. So to have all this extra, traffic with these trucks carrying this propane, if it's not currently permitted for it, I hope that you guys are looking at the permits, what the actual permits say, and, going with the knowledge that this is a dangerous situation. And you have knowledge of danger, you need to do something about. And, again, like I'm not, I'm just disappointed that I assumed for so many years that place was always licensed, inspected, safe, and everything that goes with that. And it's just very disappointing to stand in front of you up here tonight and just realize how unsafe we really have been for so many years and what negligence has taken place from, the gas company and everybody else on lack of permits and inspections. So, thank you.
I'm gonna be real quick. I already know that after hearing what you said to Sally, but I'm just gonna mention a few things. This is a map of the environmental. You don't need a map?
You can't do that.
Okay, so I'm just gonna basically say that the land that we're speaking of falls squarely within the area of critical environmental concern. This area is not only a concern to the town of Stockbridge, but a number of stakeholders.
Yeah.
I just, let me talk.
Discuss that.
So, great, but here's my point.
Time, but yeah.
This is, the activity on this property has been happening for a number of years unpermitted. I live at 92 East Main Street. I live at the bottom of Campusa Brook. Water flows downhill. I don't know if what has happened on this property has had any impact on the environment or the abutters. I can clearly see there's a safety concern, but there is clearly a dereliction of responsibilities and duties that I've seen this body halt fees and permits for far lesser infractions. And I just want to make it clear, as a resident and as a person who lives at the bottom of this brook, that I have significant concerns of what's coming downstream. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Nick Arienti. I am an attorney representing the Adlers, and I just had a couple of quick comments. I don't run afoul of the direction of the chair to speak about anything with outside of the scope of the permit application tonight. I did want to say that I submitted today an application, a request for enforcement pursuant to the zoning bylaws, pursuant to chapter 48, section 7 and town Stockbridge bylaw, section 8, requesting that the building inspector, who is a chief zoning officer, inspect the property for compliance with the zoning bylaw, and specifically did the 2 special permits that are applicable to the site. I don't need to restate anything that anyone who hasn't already spoken tonight has factually stated or put into the record. What I would say simply is that due to the allegations, the alleged and actual additional uses of the property, which far exceed those that were permitted for the use of this property, the select board at this meeting and until such further meeting is not able to make a decision or cannot properly exercise authority to make a decision on a license pursuant to chapter 148, section 13 for the gas license until such time as the user can demonstrate that they have authority to actually do any of the things that they're doing at this property pursuant to the zoning bylaw, pursuant to the use that is in place, and pursuant to the explicit permits that were already granted by the select board for this purpose. I would suggest again that the board, or the consideration of the question that's being asked, the application can't be acted on until such time as they can demonstrate that there is permission to do the additional uses, to conduct the additional acts that they are requesting to conduct at this site in consideration of all of the factors, facts, and circumstances involved. And that's all I'm going to say at this point in time. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody on Zoom?
I'm Mark Sprague, I live on 8 Yale Hill Road. I'm new to all this, but I guess I have a very simple question. We have something that has been taking place for years inappropriately. Why don't we cease and desist everything that's taking place inappropriately?
Okay.
Simple. We have stuff that's taking place inappropriately. Stop it.
Is that?
Just a couple things. One thing, as I know was stated, that there could be unlimited tanks up there. There actually can't be, because all tanks, whether full or empty, are considered full for your permitting process.
So as long as-
That's one of the things. We have to remember that we have a 2005 permit that does allow propane operation up there at the site for the 330,000. Everything else is optional. And as far as safety concerns, I know Vinny, as far as addressing back to the 2005 permit, they are safely operating within that, except for the items that if denied tonight would have to be removed. So you have in front of you, the optional ones for the board to consider tonight are the methanol tank and the 5 3,200 gallon delivery trucks, and up to 72 tanks, which is 120, which is the 8,600 gallon. That would be the maximum tanks that would be allowed. Those are the things that the board is considering tonight.
So they are legally running the operation.
Are we in deliberation? Are we?
Yeah. We will be in a minute.
If I could just offer one
Yes.
thing. Vinnie Garofoli, Stockbridge Fire Chief. After Attorney Ariente's presentation, one concern just came to light for me tonight from the fire department side. We have put out an order of notice that granted them to still run, to some extent, the operation they've been currently running under the compliance of meeting all the order of notice compliance. They did that. But if you continue it as suggested, you could push this 6, 8, 9 months out, depending on what the determination is. They're still acting in taking tanks from the field, putting new tanks for staging. They've made their areas, all based on waiting for this hearing. So my suggestion to the board is, even if you don't take action tonight, that you put forth an order to either go back to what was permitted in 05 temporarily, so that we can get it back to where it needs to be, so that we're not sitting 6, 8 months out with operations continuing that aren't licensed. That's my only concern. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, or is it too late?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Is the sound too loud? Sometimes on my laptop.
Name and address, please.
It's Kate Fletcher and Hawthorne Street. So when there was a special permit in 2005, were abutters notified of that?
Yes, there was a license and there was notification done in 2005. It was not a special permit, it's a license.
Okay. And then it sounds like it's very detailed, so it's, if you're new to the issue, it's challenging to follow, but it sounds like the scale of the operation has increased dramatically. Am I understanding that correctly?
There are elements that are happening up there right now that are not permitted.
Yes.
And that's what they are asking to have them permitted tonight. And those are the 4 things that are before the board this evening.
But the traffic, it sounds like the truck traffic has increased. And I'm trying to understand, was that permitted originally?
There
was no set.
There's been a statement about traffic, but
There's
been no
Traffic study.
study or no set limit on traffic in the 2005.
2005 simply allows them to bring a truck in, load it, and then leave with that truck to load homes.
Yes.
Or tanks.
Didn't limit
They're not
how many
allowed
trucks
for
are
any
coming in.
storage of any equipment up there. They're not allowed to have any delivery trucks on site, and they're not allowed to have any storage of any kind up there. Those are the ones that are in front of you right now, and the ones you guys need to.
Now, we understand.
Consider.
Does Kate have any more questions or comments?
Any other comments from anybody?
Yeah, I'll just finish up and I'll just say it does sound like a really significant impact as well as a public health concern. I really feel for the neighborhood and an environmental impact, although I understand I can't bring that up. But I hope that the board will consider those impacts and the possibility, if it is possible, of putting a time frame on this, that if you are inclined to approve it, setting a time frame that allows for the possibility of perhaps some sort of improved situation or a way to look at other locations. I realize the manufacturing district is a privately owned property, but it does seem like a really unfortunate location for this type of operation. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I move that we close the introductory portion of the hearing and move to deliberate by the board. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Aye, Pat.
Aye, Chuck.
Hi, Jamie.
Okay, so. Whereas right now, they're licensed to have their 90,000 gallons,
Correct.
drive their trucks in, load them. No limit on how many trucks they can drive in and out.
Right. Bring it, come in, load the truck,
Load
bring
up
it
and
out.
go.
That's what's been allowed since
That's what's
2005.
activated now that we cannot change.
You'd have to have a separate hearing to revoke that
Okay.
based on safety concerns that's now in front of you today.
So the only we can vote on is the 600 gallon methanol tank,
Yep.
up to 5 3200 gallon tanks,
Delivery trucks. Yep.
delivery trucks, and the 7,220 gallon vertical tanks.
Yep.
Okay?
You can approve, limit, or deny.
I'll let you go first.
All or
No, I'd like to hear from you.
Portion.
You're
You
the
mean?
subject,
Yeah.
you're the subject matter expert.
It's very difficult. I would like to allow the 600 gallon methanol because you need that when you load your trucks, but deny the other two.
They can't load trucks, then why would they need the methanol?
They can load trucks. They can't just park them there over there.
Under the 2005
Because we
permit, they can
can't
load the
change the
truck.
2005 license.
But that still means that these trucks are going up the road, that we can't stop, into the plant, load and leaving. We can't change that.
Well,
As of tonight, we can't change that.
I'm not suggesting we change that, I'm just suggesting, wait.
That's just my thought at this point. I mean, what's your opinion?
We can't change the license. I liked what Vinnie actually said, just to go back to that. I don't support the 72 120 gallon vertical tanks or 5 delivery trucks. Yeah. I think it's always hard to inherit someone else's, the weight of someone else's, oversights. I will say that.
At least with the 600 gallon methanol tank, it's in the proper
Oh.
tank. It's not in the 50 gallon drums. It's in the legal pressurized.
Yeah.
Any you would be able to say, how's the methanol set up?
The methanol setup, as you saw in the Adler's presentation picture from earlier, they're utilizing an ASTME tank, as Jason specified, horizontal tank mounted behind the strike protection barriers, piped in appropriately. So there's no longer 55 gallon drums, because part of the order of notice that was issued made it such that they would have to take the 55 gallon drums from randomly being stored to being stored vertically inside of a strike protected and vented building and placarded accordingly. So they opted, instead of doing that, to alleviate the situation by using a proper ASTME tank behind the strike protection that would have taken care of all of that, because there would no longer be the drums at all. So currently it's in that proper tank, right there for the piping, strike protected, in a proper tank. So there's no 55 gallon drums except what is used to load currently, and it leaves the property same day. So they come in, they dump it, they leave. And that's it.
We're not, I mean, the hearing's closed, we're not taking testimony. I think we need to just continue deliberations, but you're the chair, you decide it, but, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Look at, that sounds great, but we had it in 55 barrel drums until 3 months ago with a spigot. Limiting it to a certain number of containers sounds great, but we had 270 of them stacked willy-nilly. I don't know about these other issues that were brought up tonight. I know that is not the purview of this hearing, but of course they raise concerns. And I am not prepared to approve any aspect of the expansion of this permit tonight.
Okay. So if we don't approve the permit, we have to
Deny.
continue the hearing.
No,
No, we
You can
just deny.
You can deny all three of those things. Those are all
We don't have
optional.
to
But
say
it's
yes.
not stopping them from,
We can't change the license, right?
That's up to them on how they operate. You guys have three things in front of you. It's optional. For you can deny, limit, or approve.
I'll make a motion to deny.
all of it,
Yep.
A second.
even the 600 gallon. Something need for freezing.
I thought they had 500 gallons there.
No, it's not permitted. They have it, that they never, that was the thing that was in the
Okay.
55 barrel drums.
I definitely deny the trucks and the 72 vertical tanks. I would go to 500 gallons of methanol, not 600. but
Well, there's a motion. Is anybody going to second my motion? If not,
Not yet. Well, I mean, without the methanol, then it's gonna be more of a safety issue because things are gonna freeze when you load the trucks in the winter.
Can I clarify that, or is that too late?
What's that?
Can I
Too late.
clarify the methanol usage, or is that too late?
hearing's closed.
Hearing's closed, right?
yeah.
The motion to deny allows them to address all the town's concerns and come back for a new permit application. Another motion, a decision to deny. And I would love to hear all these concerns addressed, and then if they want to then resume operations or continue operations or add things later, I would like to not hear promises, but actually see the results of whatever those concerns are.
Boy. So you want to deny everything, you want 500 gallons.
I want to deny it all.
You want to deny it all? You can second Pat's motion then if you want.
I did.
Yeah? I didn't hear
Yeah, I did.
you. No, you're talking about going to 500 gallons.
So I can restate it. I second the motion on the floor.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye, Patrick.
Aye, Jamie.
Aye, Chuck. Okay, I make a motion that we close the hearing. Roll call.
Aye, Patrick.
Well, second first.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye, Patrick.
Aye, Chuck.
Aye, Jamie.
Okay.